Welcome to the All Sorts podcast. Like always, we're ready to dig into another fascinating topic. Today, we're taking you to a really picturesque village. It's nestled in the hills of Assam, India.
Jatinga,
yes. And Jatinga is known for its lush greenery. But there's also a mysterious, darker side to this village.
Yeah, for over a century, people have been baffled by these mysterious bird deaths.
Often called bird suicides.
Exactly.
So to really get into this, we've gathered a bunch of different sources, travel blogs, scientific articles, and even firsthand accounts from folks who've seen this bizarre phenomenon.
It's pretty incredible. What we're going to try and do today is peel back the layers of this mystery.
Yeah, and see what it can teach us about nature, and maybe even ourselves.
That's right. You know, what makes Jatinga so intriguing is this intersection of science and folklore.
Right, like are we dealing with hard facts or spooky stories?
A bit of both, to be honest. There are reports going back to the early 1900s.
Wow, that's a long time.
It is. And for a long time, folks thought these bird deaths were the work of evil spirits.
I mean, that's understandable, right?
Yeah.
Can you imagine being the Naga people? They were the first settlers of Jatinga.
Oh, absolutely.
They see these birds,
Yeah.
totally normal during the day, suddenly just smashing into things in the middle of the night.
In the pitch black.
It's like something out of a horror movie.
It does make you think, doesn't it?
And this only happens during a certain time, right?
Yeah, during the monsoon season. So between September and November, and only on those really dark, moonless nights.
It's like the stage is set for something strange.
Exactly. And then you add in the bird's behavior. It's just unsettling.
Because we're talking about all sorts of birds, right?
Yeah, local birds, migratory birds, all kinds, basically.
And they all get disoriented.
Totally. They start flying erratically, and then boom, they're hitting trees, buildings, anything in their path.
But within a very specific area, right?
Yeah, just a 1.5-kilometer stretch along the village ridge.
That's so specific. It's not like it's happening all over the village.
Yeah.
Just that one section. Why there? What's so special about that spot?
That's the million-dollar question. It's something that's puzzled scientists for decades. The initial theories focus on the environment.
Okay, so natural causes.
Right. One idea was that the thick fog and strong winds, typical during monsoon season, they kind of mess with the birds' navigation.
They get lost, basically.
Exactly. And then drawn to the village lights, they end up crashing.
Like moths to a flame. Except way more tragic. But if that's the case, wouldn't this be happening, wherever you've got fog, lights, and birds?
You'd think so, wouldn't you?
So what makes Jatinga so unique?
It's that very question that leads us to dig deeper. Because it's just so localized to this specific part of the ridge, and it's mainly during the monsoon season. It suggests that there's got to be a really unique combination of things happening.
Like a perfect storm of weirdness.
Exactly. And that's where some of the more recent research gets really interesting. So one thing researchers have been looking at is Jatinga's topography. It's in this narrow valley surrounded by hills.
Okay, lots of hills. How does that play into this?
Well, during the monsoon, it's like the hills create this almost a natural wind tunnel.
A wind tunnel. Like for testing how aerodynamic things are. What does that have to do with the birds?
Think of it this way. The hills channel those powerful monsoon winds, basically funneling them, and the birds get caught in this flow, pushing them right towards that part of the ridge where all the deaths happen.
Ah, so the landscape itself could be concentrating the birds in that one area.
Yeah.
Makes them more likely to run into, confusing conditions.
Yeah, exactly. And there's also the birds themselves to consider. Studies have shown that a lot of these birds are juveniles.
The younger birds. So maybe their navigational skills aren't quite up to par yet, like they haven't gotten their pilot's license, so to speak.
That's a great analogy. Yeah, they might be more easily confused by that mix of wind, fog, and darkness. And that makes them more likely to hit something.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about the light theory? I mean, it makes sense that birds are attracted to light, but is that really the main cause of death here?
It's more complicated than that. I mean, the villagers did use lights to attract the birds, especially in the past. But similar bird deaths have been observed in other places where there aren't any artificial lights.
So it can't just be as simple as birds see light, birds crash. There's got to be something else going on. Something, unique to Jatinga, maybe.
Right. That's where Dr. Sudhir Sengupta comes in. He's a scientist from the Zoological Survey of India. He proposed this theory about geomagnetism.
Geomagnetism. Okay, you're going to have to break that down for me.
Sure. He suggested that the rising underground water levels during the monsoons could actually change the magnetic properties of the ridge.
Wait, water can affect magnetism? How does that work?
So, water especially moving water, can carry stuff that has magnetic properties. Think of it this way. The Earth has this magnetic field, and birds have these amazing internal compasses that help them navigate using that field.
Right, so they're like little flying magnets.
Exactly. But if something messes with that magnetic field, it's like messing with their GPS.
Ah, so Dr. Sengupta is saying that those monsoon rains could be changing the magnetic field in that specific area, Jatinga, and that's disorienting the birds.
That's the idea. His theory is that these magnetic fluctuations, combined with the other stuff we talked about, like the wind tunnel and the young birds, it basically creates this perfect storm of disorientation.
Like they're flying through a magnetic maze and their senses are all scrambled. Makes sense why they'd end up crashing.
Right. And if this whole magnetic pull theory is true, well, that raises another question.
Which is?
Could this be happening in other places? Places with fluctuating water levels? Maybe.
That's a really interesting thought. So we've gone from evil spirits to wind tunnels to magnetic mysteries. What a wild ride. But it sounds like we still don't have a definitive answer for Jatinga, huh?
Not yet. There's still a lot we don't know about this phenomenon, but that's part of what makes it so fascinating.
I agree. There's always more to discover. But you mentioned a glimmer of hope earlier. What did you mean by that?
It has to do with the conservation efforts. While we haven't totally solved the mystery of the bird deaths, the local community's response has been pretty amazing.
So like once people started learning more about what might be happening, things started to change.
Yeah, definitely. As scientific explanations came out, there was a real shift in Jatinga.
So they moved away from blaming it all on evil spirits.
Yes. And even more importantly, they realized the birds weren't doing this on purpose. They were victims of, well, a very specific set of circumstances, and that led to a decline in people hunting the birds and more efforts to protect them.
It's great to hear that. Understanding leading to compassion. It's a good reminder for all of us. So what kind of steps have been taken to help the birds?
Well, a lot of groups have been involved. NGOs, the Forest Department, the local administration, they've all been working to raise awareness, especially about how vulnerable these birds are during monsoon season. They've even got educational programs to, discourage hunting and promote conservation.
It sounds like a real community effort. And you mentioned earlier there's the annual Jatinga Festival, right?
Oh, yeah, that's a big one. The North Kachar Hills Autonomous Council, they put it on every year. It's all about celebrating migratory birds and spreading the word about conservation. Really shows how a community can pull together to protect its natural treasures.
Turning a tragedy into an opportunity for education and positive change. I love that. But has it made a difference? Like with all the research and the efforts to protect the birds, have the number of deaths actually gone down?
Yes, thankfully. There's been a significant decrease in bird deaths in recent years. Shows you what can happen when people work together and, well, try to understand these delicate ecosystems a little better.
That's amazing news. But it does make you wonder, if the deaths are decreasing in Jatinga, does that mean the mystery's fading away too?
Not really. In fact, there have been reports of similar bird deaths happening nearby in a village called Doing.
Oh, wow. So it's like the phenomenon is relocating.
It does seem that way.
Any ideas why?
Well, some researchers think it might have something to do with climate change, how it's affecting bird migration patterns, and also changes in how land is being used and habitat loss.
So even while we're seeing progress in Jatinga, those bigger environmental issues, they could be creating new hotspots for this phenomenon.
Yeah, it's a reminder that what's happening in Jatinga isn't just about the birds. It's about us. It's about our relationship with nature and how everything's connected.
Like a little microcosm of the environmental challenges we're facing all over the world. It really emphasizes the importance of research, conservation, and, well, just understanding how what we do affects the planet.
Absolutely. We may never fully solve the mystery of Jatinga, but the lessons we learned from it, those can definitely help us move towards a more sustainable future, one where we live in harmony with nature.
Well, this has been a truly fascinating deep dive. We've gone from ancient folklore to magnetic fields to the impact of climate change.
And while we still have a lot of questions about Jatinga, the story itself is pretty inspiring, don't you think? It highlights the power of curiosity, of scientific investigation, and our responsibility to protect the planet's biodiversity.
So for our listeners, what's the big takeaway here? What can they learn from our exploration of Jatinga's bird deaths?
I think the key message is that nature is full of wonder and beauty, but it's also incredibly complex. And sometimes it's the things we don't understand that teach us the most. By observing, asking questions, and trying to understand, we can not only solve those mysteries, but we can also figure out how to live more in harmony with nature.
It's a call to action for all of us to really pay attention to how our actions affect the environment and, to do what we can to protect those delicate ecosystems.
Well said. And who knows, maybe one of our listeners will be the one to finally crack the code of Jatinga.
That would be incredible.
Okay.
In the meantime, we encourage everyone to get out there and explore the world of birds, support conservation efforts, and just keep those minds open to the wonders of the natural world.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those minds wide open.
And that wraps up our journey into the heart of Jatinga's bird mystery. We hope you found it as fascinating as we did. Don't forget to subscribe to All Sorts Podcast on YouTube and follow us on X, Instagram, and Threads for more deep dives into the unexpected and the unexplained. There's a whole universe of incredible stories out there just waiting to be discovered.